So apparently Solo Leveling Arise is giving out a SSR selector weapon for Sung JINWOO, and we are going to go over this. So it's pretty apparent which ones you should choose just off the jump. But regardless, I'm going to throw different qualifiers out there that may be applied to you. So make sure you watch the entirety of the video. Also, subscribe to the channel if you are new and post down below which one you chose. Because like I said, I don't think there's a de facto, you need to get this and anybody else choosing anything else is wrong. I don't think that's really the case here. I think there's actually a lot of different variants depending on what you want to do. So the first thing I'll mention with this is you can knock off like half this list of weapons. Like you just don't need half of this list currently, in my opinion. You can get use out of them. Like I low-key get use out of Vulcan's Rage. Or I have recently with some of the fire content that had popped up recently, but I'm gonna knock it off the list. I don't know if it got buffed in any capacity, but I'm still gonna knock it off the list regardless. I used to get a lot of use out of the Scythe. It's just been kind of usurped by 3 far better dark weapons. Again, assuming it hasn't been buffed recently. I haven't seen anything in the last week and a half of the game because I've been really busy otherwise. So with that being the case, if it hasn't been buffed, then we're going to take it off of the list. I'm not considering those 2. I still get great use out of Huntsman. It's one of my favorite weapons in the game due to the way it works with the halt and the break and all that stuff. I love it, but taking it off the list. And we're also taking Scatty or Scotty, however you pronounce it, off of the list as well. However, I will say with Huntsman and Scatty, they are the only, well, there's another water weapon here, but they're the only weapons that are one of 2 only weapons that you're going to be able to use. You know, so that's kind of one thing too. Like in Huntsman's case, it's the only light SSR weapon for JINWOO. So if you wanted to do that, that could be one of the reasons why. But other than that, though, I wouldn't really consider it. So the next caveat that I'll throw out there is that most of the weapons get extremely strong with their 3rd star / advancement / dupe, whatever you want to call it. And then others after that point are getting that 5th one. So if you've got a weapon that's sitting on 2, like my Phoenix Soul is, or a weapon that's sitting on 4, like my Grimoire is, excuse me, those should be ones that you also consider because the way that they're going to power up is going to be massive for you. I can't see what that last advancement is in this case. It's not letting me see it. But the way they're going to power up is going to be massive for you if it's one of the good weapons that I've kind of already eliminated the not trash, but the ones I'm not going to choose out. So everything else here, like I said, these Grimoire, the Soul, the dark weapons here, the longsword, the daggers as well. These are the ones I'd consider. But if you're getting that 3rd or 4th or 5th, excuse me, 3rd or 5th advancement on a weapon, I'd strongly consider it. Now, here is the generic choice. It's going to be make sure you get these 2 weapons to A5. This has been ever since global launch, basically. These have been the best weapons in the game, the ones that you primarily want to get to 5. And their usefulness is something that kind of supersedes the content you're taking on because you're getting the crit bonuses and all that stuff with this, and then also amplifying draw, just enhancing whatever you want. Plum Sword is extremely strong for the crit damage. It just applies to your entire setup that you have, what you knew. And then the way Moonshadow functions is kind of cool. The slowing down of time, also the increase of damage is really strong too. Moonshadow is also extremely strong. Also, for the record, the Grimoire, these 2 are extremely strong in other pieces of content that require team fight modes where your other characters are not just supports, but they're actually out there like Guild Boss or whatever, and you're going to be able to do more damage as a whole, get more benefit out of that. So those 2 are extremely strong for that. But that's the generic choice, is choosing these dark weapons. That's kind of always been what it is, right? Zeke's is extremely strong with the dupes. I believe it lets you start using its skill more, as if I recall correctly. I've been out of touch over the last week and a half, like I might have mentioned earlier, I believe. So I believe that's more or less the case with Zeke's, but I never really built it up because I felt like with these 2 weapons, I was mostly secure, right? Like I didn't feel like I really needed to. It also, I just started getting it far after when it was, you know, released and stuff like that. So the primary weapon, though, that I would like to say you guys should consider boosting right now is the longsword here. The Demon King longsword is kind of insane. it's kind of insane, especially if you're gonna push it to 3 or 5. If you're gonna push it to like 2, I mean, obviously you could get that dupe now and then get another one later. Maybe you're gonna get it as something from the weapon draw potentially. I would argue you do that first, by the way. Go try to get that other dupe elsewhere first, then come back to this, because this is a guarantee, unlike the other stuff. But this thing is kind of insane. It does a lot of damage cumulatively with all the lightning out there. Also, I think the fourth dupe increases your wind damage overall, which is super duper strong for other wind skills or weapons like the daggers here, which I'll also consider. Just a lot of damage output with that thing. I haven't seen calculations, but it may very well be the best damaging weapon, just raw, just overall, just due to the way that it functions out there. So I would put a lot of onus on this, and also it's going to allow you or be useful in the hardest pieces of content currently in the game. So a lot of what I said also applies, by the way, to the daggers. Just crazy damage output, extremely relevant right now, extremely relevant element right now. So keep that in mind too. Now, I want to throw a bone also to Phoenix Soul, because I feel like we still haven't truly hit the fire meta for the game. And so I think Phoenix Soul is extremely good, easily one of the best damaging weapons in the game, one of the best weapons overall. But I don't know that we've seen its true usefulness yet with the way that the game has, like, they're slowly putting out fire hunters, you know, they buffed the other older fire hunters. I don't know that we've hit the fire meta yet. Maybe Thomas Andre will be fire and that'll kickstart that. But my point with this is that, like, if you've got it like I do around 2, the third dupe is extremely strong. I believe it allowed the skill damage to go up. I have to go back and pull it up, but the third dupe on this one I remember being extremely strong. So I would consider that, because again, I think fire is going to be extremely useful going forward. And that's mostly everything. Like, I wouldn't really consider mostly any of this other stuff. But what I would recommend, again, is to try to get the other stuff, like the other dupes, if you can first. For example, for me, I could come here right now and get a dupe of both of these. In fact, I'll do it right now while I'm here before I forget. I'll just do it. And so that's gonna push my Zeke's to 4. And so remember I mentioned with Zeke's, oh, I forgot I wanted to actually get the Go one. I didn't want the Zeke's, I wanted the Go. I had a Go with Phoenix Soul. I forgot I wanted that. That's kind of annoying. I forgot I wanted that. All right, whatever. Remember I said with Zeke's how, like, I never really had much usefulness for it, despite how good I know it is. I never really got to the point where I needed it. But now I can consider putting on that 5th, because here's where things are. I just got the 4th. When the user uses a drop attack in Zeke's return sequentially, it enhances the refined fragment effect and applies the black lightning fragment effect as well. Increases Zeke's advent's return damage, and also increases the critical hit rate and Zeke's of the skills basically by 20%. So that's extremely strong for this. And with my Phoenix, that put me in a point where I don't need that third one, but if I were to get it, it will put me in 4th, which is really good. Decreasing the cooldown is extremely strong. But really, I wouldn't get it, because I would be sitting right there. Now, since we're here, my Grimoire is at 4. I believe the 5th one increases the damage. Yeah, increases the damage to targets that are frozen by 50%. That's an extremely strong skill. Extremely strong skill. I may pick that one up, actually, now that we're kind of looking at it. But you see, like with this one, I don't need this dupe, the 4th dupe, because it's just going to reduce the cooldown, which is good. But until I get closer, I'm not really looking for that. And so that leads me to my next and final point, right? So remember I was saying that you can kind of sit on these. What's the 4th here? Is it a cooldown too, or a damage increase? It looks like it's typically a cooldown for the 4th dupe, huh? It looks like it's typically a cooldown. Yeah, okay. That brings me to my last point of this, and that is that you can actually sit on that. It's in your inventory. It's not going to expire, assuming you claim it from the gift box. Please claim it. It's not going to expire. Now, as more weapons come out, they're not going to enhance this. Like the new weapon after longsword or daggers, excuse me, is not going to be added here. It's just going to sit here. So you can sit on this as long as you want, and you can come back to this down the road if, say, all of a sudden you start pulling a bunch of copies of the longsword and you're like, oh, I can get the 5th. Let's go. Let's do that now. And so I do think that's an option. But the key thing here is that half of these weapons are extremely good. So that's why I said in the very beginning, I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I don't think it's any one size fits all. I do think that there's a lot of opportunity here to where if you could really push a really strong weapon, which half of these are, up to 5, then you should go for it, right? Even 3, I think, is pretty solid as a free player. So post down below what your opinions were, what you're going to do, and all that fun stuff. And I'll see you in the next one.